Welcome back, everyone, to the show Requirements, a Harry Potter podcast, streaming everywhere you get podcasts and also on YouTube, presented by the Gazebo Effect Network. I'm your host, David, joined by Spencer, and not Crangis's butt, but Cole Harris.
I mean, I'm still kind of Crangis's butt, so.
Sorry, YouTube people, you're missing, you're not missing anything, actually. It's that one version of Cats that no one talks about.
Or that everybody talks about.
Or maybe that everyone talks about.
Yeah.
Was that the theatrical version?
Like,
one of them include butts.
Oh! I thought we were
the
talking about
it's
Cats
the-
in general,
it's the
not
Zack
the music.
Snyder cut.
It's a double pun, Cole.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
At least he has a
but
clean
we
butt.
are here talking, reviewing Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Probably one of our favorite books ever, at least for me. It's an amazing book. We love it. We think it's great.
Apparently not universally popular.
And so we're just gonna dive into, yeah, which is crazy. I didn't know that.
I don't know what that trend is about.
That's wild to me.
Yeah. Wild to me. It's the last Hogwarts book.
Mm.
Really.
Mm-hmm. It really brings back the mystery aspect of like the first 3 books.
I think
Yeah.
it brings back the fun of Hogwarts for a minute.
Yes.
Too.
Mhm.
It is
The fun of Hogwarts, but with puberty this time.
Yeah, I was gonna say all the horniness in this book,
Oh wow.
but in a different way than Order of the Phoenix did.
Yeah. So Spencer, you said it right before. Like, you love everything about this book, from the story
Pretty much start to finish. Yeah.
design. And so can you remember the first time you've ever picked this up, or at least the last time you've read through it? And where does it rank for you just overall?
So for the longest time, Half-Blood Prince was my favorite book. It still remains, and it might even top Back to the Future and Inception in the movie that I have seen the most times in my entire life. I didn't.
Wow.
So before I got my sister and her husband got me the whole 8-disc collection at one point. But before that, I had like 2 or 3 of them. And one of the ones I had was the DVD copy of Half-Blood Prince. And I mean, I try to think like a book that's been used a ton. Think about that, but a DVD. I mean, you pull that thing out and it is like scratches all over it, but it still works. Like
It still works, yeah.
watched the absolute death out of that thing. So I think my first time reading it was just a huge breath of fresh air because I was 12 and 13 and I was in puberty. And Order of the Phoenix actually made me so emotional that my parents said, maybe you need to put it down for a bit. Which is just hilarious. Yeah, so I took a break and then I finally came back and finished Order of the Phoenix, and I jumped straight into Half-Blood Prince, and I think I start to finish that thing in like 4 days.
Yeah.
I think the first time. And I remember getting to the end of it, and we'll talk about it again, but the ending of this book just breaks me. Not Dumbledore's death, but the tomb and that whole last chapter on the lake. And we really didn't get that in the movie, but the movie scene is sentimental to me in a different way. On the astronomy tower, back on the astronomy tower where it happened. But I just love everything about this book. I think as David and I were talking about a little bit, the book cover, which you could pick that up again if you want. I love the design of it. I love the green. And then I love the hardcover because I don't have the jacket anymore. But the inside cover, the purple and green is just a great color. Matchup. It's reverse of Prisoner of Azkaban, honestly, which is probably why I love it so much. So I think Half-Blood Prince is one of those ones that I'm like, maybe people are right. Maybe it's not as good as I give it credit for. Maybe it's number 2 or 3. And like every time I read through, I'm like, oh, Prisoner of Azkaban is up there. But then I get to Half-Blood Prince and I'm like, nope, I still feel the same way I've always felt about it. And it's Deathly Hallows is hard to rank because it's very sad and it's slow, and I don't reread that one very often.
Mm-hmm.
A
Cole,
lot of plot twists, a lot of spoilers, but Half-Blood Prince is great.
So this one does hold a little bit of a special bit for me. I think, as I mentioned previously, I read these books for the first time in high school when I was going through a bout of severe sickness. And this was actually the book I read on the airplane to go have my brain surgery. So it kept me from being absolutely freaking terrified. It kept me distracted for that whole plane trip.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not my favorite one, but it's up there. There's definitely some worse books in this franchise series thing.
Yeah,
I would also
usually-
say it gives the opportunity to flesh out the villain.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might secretly be why I prefer Voldemort over Grindelwald, is because he's a more fleshed out villain, because we've spent
Correct.
so much time with him. We know
By the
time we get to the end of Deathly Hallows, we know everything about him.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Almost.
Just
Yeah.
7 small things that kind of important.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably why Half-Blood Prince and the Deathly Hallows are so high on my list, is because they flesh out important characters. So like in the Half-Blood Prince, it focuses a lot on Voldemort, and then on Deathly Hallows, it focuses in a lot on Dumbledore. And so when we get to dive into these characters that have huge significance to the story, those are the books that I automatically just gravitate towards. And so usually it's like a 3-way race for first place on my rankings. It's Half-Blood Prince, Deathly Hallows, and Prisoner of Azkaban. Those are books that I just cannot put down. Like even when we were like, as soon as Spencer said, "Hey guys, we're just gonna jump right into Half-Blood Prince, and we're gonna record on Monday," which was like a week ago, and I was just like, "Yes, absolutely." So I went on Hoopla, got the audiobook, and I knocked that sucker out like that night. Like first 6 chapters, just completely got immersed and hooked back into it. It's a great story. I love it, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Side note, Jim Dale love. I've been
Yeah.
seeing a lot of Jim. I found my way to Jim Dale TikTok.
Mm.
Do you guys get a chance to watch that video I sent you guys?
I did
I
not.
have not yet.
It's okay. Jim Dale explains his process for creating all 130 plus character voices for when he did the Harry Potter series. There's no way Stephen Fry did not do this many character voices. So basically, he sat down and he would read the entire book, and he would go down he explained, like, on page 1, I'd go down, I'd see Dumbledore, and then I would write down 1 Dumbledore, and then he would make a little note, or he'd make little notes on what Dumbledore sounded like, and then he'd tape a tape recorder and he'd go 1 Dumbledore, and he would read the first line of Dumbledore, and he had a tape recorder with him, and he'd bring that with him to the studio and be like, "Stop, we need a minute because I don't remember what 24 sounds like."
That's crazy.
Can you imagine the
That would
painstaking,
take so long.
so much
Yeah.
dedication and so much effort? And I think that might just give him the prize that we had been hesitant to give him before.
Mhm.
And so much
Yeah.
praise in the comments. Someone was saying, "Oh, I love Jim Dale, but I prefer Stephen Fry." And I was about to comment, be like, "Screw you."
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think Jim Dale is fantastic.
But yeah,
and awesome.
I had to pop up my Hoopla, just get cooking.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna dive into chapter 1, The Other Minister. Great chapter, loved it. We see the connection between the magical
World
and
building.
non-magical world.
World building. All the
Yes,
world building.
yes. Yeah, it's fantastic. I loved it. We see the moments of Fudge coming in because we kind of get some flashbacks of, the prime minister getting meetings with Fudge, where Fudge would just be like, "Oh, yep, Sirius Black got out. Oh, yep, a bunch of prisoners from Azkaban got out. Oh,
That's
Lord
unfortunate.
Voldemort's back." Like like it just gets significantly worse as he like visits him more and more, until this last time where we see like, "Oh yeah, I've been sacked. Like I've lost my job." Um, and we get to meet the new Minister of Magic.
Rufus
Pious
Scrimgeour.
Sure.
No, we're
Yeah.
not on Pius.
I
Yet,
know.
but
No,
that's
Pius
Luke's
doesn't
favorite.
count.
That's Luke's favorite Harry Potter character. Because it's supposed to be, it's pronounced Thickensy, but he always goes Pious Thickness.
But
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was great. Pretty straightforward, simple back and forth. But Spencer, I do remember you saying this one time, like the way that the chapter ends, even of like them saying, "Wait, but you guys have magic. Can't you guys like deal with this?" And he's just like, "Well,
You
that's
could
the
do
thing."
anything.
Yeah,
The other side has magic too.
yeah. Just a
Um,
great.
It's a great line. It's a great. I mean, JK's backing her fighting for him on chapter endings for sure.
Mhm.
And this is more overarching the first 2 chapters, but this is one of the only times in the series that we actually have chapters without Harry in them, or from Harry's
Hmm.
perspective.
Yeah.
And I just really value that. It kind of takes us out a little bit, where we're actually like, oh, it's not just Harry Potter's world. Like it also is kind of a break as well. I'm sure for some people, and I feel it by the time we're reaching end of chapter 2 or so, I'm like, okay, but where's my boy Harry and what's he doing?
Mm.
But
What are the good guys doing?
What are the good guys doing? We do get a what are the bad guys doing in chapter 2. But yeah, I love this chapter. I think Bill Nighy was just, I know he's friends with David Yates, so I get that's probably why he jumped in to play Scrimgeour, but we didn't get enough of him in the movies.
We did not.
I agree. No.
They also couldn't pay him enough.
And I do feel like, while he's so great, I believe that we casted him as Ollivander. I think that's more his speed. I think
I can see that.
the presence of Scrimgeour is not quite what they did in the movie. It's a bit different. I imagine a big beard as well.
I like him with a beard and a mustache that are kind of tentacly.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, he would have looked better if he had that, I guess. But yeah, just big loping figure. And he sounds like, I know that they make a big deal about him and Dumbledore not getting along or whatever. But literally Dumbledore drops off Harry. He's like, okay, I'm going to go talk to Scrimgeour. So it's like, clearly Dumbledore does respect him a little more.
Mm.
Not that it did much, but maybe like their partnership worked until Dumbledore died. And then that kind of went off the rails after that, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Does it seem like in this chapter, I don't know, this could just be me. You guys can disagree if you want. I did feel like Fudge was a lot calmer and more sympathetic. Like it was easier to sympathize with him on this side of it, because like, yeah, you got sacked and you're doing your due diligence, and Scrimgeour is just like kind of walks over him a little bit, and so I'm just like, oh man, Fudge. But then at the same time, I'm just like,
Fudge.
but you were an absolute jerk. and at the end of Goblet of
For-
Fire and
yes.
all of Order of the Phoenix. But I
Umbridge.
don't know. I just felt
all
bad for
that was
just
him.
a little bit. Yeah, for sure, it was. Yeah, but I just felt, a little bit bad for him.
Yeah, and I think it kind of brings us full circle on Fudge's character because we never hear from him again.
Yeah,
Ever.
Yeah, I think he survives, but that's all we know. We never actually directly hear from him again, and so it kind of gives us a cap off to his character. The other thing I would
Mhm.
note is that it almost gives us a Sorcerer's Stone like experience with someone experiencing magic for the first time,
yeah,
because we've been in this world for so long that we don't get to see the outside perspective, like
Yeah.
paintings and what have you.
yeah. I thought it was super interesting how it kind of walked us through, like, okay, every time there's a new prime minister, they have a meeting like this, be like, oh yeah, there's a magical world and a ministry and all this kinds of stuff. I'm going to be coming to you when there's like important stuff. That's a lot to like.
BT
put
dubs,
on
there's dragons
somebody.
coming into the country. Okay, peace
Yes.
out.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
other quote that I wanted to point out is like, he's like, well, what if I tell somebody? And Fudge actually laughs out loud, like, you're not gonna tell anybody. He's like, yeah, I was
Right.
never
Who's gonna believe you?
Yeah, no one's gonna. I wouldn't tell a soul what has happened.
Right. Just crazy, just craziness. But let's go ahead and let's jump into chapter 2, Spinner's End. This was a great chapter. And we usually do this segment impromptu, but it's usually like book versus movie. I feel like the film does this really, really well. It's almost like shot for shot, scene for scene. Although obviously we get a longer explanation in the book of like Snape's backstory and all that kind of stuff. But this is a chapter where the Lestrange sisters go to Snape to really, it's Narcissa. Bellatrix is just like, we shouldn't be here. The Dark Lord doesn't want you telling any of this information. But it's I think a very, very great chapter, and I loved it.
It's really hard to stack them up against each other. I'm also happy
you
the
probably
movie.
Can't.
No, the movie. I'm gonna try it anyway though.
Yeah,
the movie. I'm just glad the movie's made the effort to include certain cast members that, like, Wormtail is not in this movie at all. He was only in the scene.
Yeah, right.
And they didn't have to do that, but they did, and I appreciate it. Narcissa, and maybe this is because we've been fan casting. We've already fan casted this person. Cole and I have already fan. Should we reveal who we fan casted?
You can, because I don't remember who it was.
It's because we didn't have her on the last one. We fan casted Jodie Whittaker.
Oh, that's right, we did.
Oh.
It'd be a very, I believe she has it in her, but it'd be a completely different role for her.
Very different.
And maybe this
I like
is just
that
Jim.
a lot, actually.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
And maybe it's just Jim Dale, but it felt Narcissa felt a lot more desperate, and Helen McCroy, whoever played her in the movie, just doesn't have that disposition. And so the scene plays out a bit differently because she holds the same Malfoy, I don't know, honor, pride. Yeah, the air, especially, but it matches up with Lucius better. Like, it works. It's just very different from, she still shows the desperation, but the Jim Dale version was writhing, crying, grabbing at the robes and stuff. And I forget this every time, Narcissa suggests the unbreakable vow.
Yeah,
in the book.
Not Bellatrix.
Not Bellatrix. Bellatrix is just like, he won't do it. And then he's like, yeah, I will.
Bet.
But Alan Rickman does so good.
He does. He really does.
Take out your wand. And of course, I mean, Helena Bonham Carter steals every scene.
Yeah.
So that's also
Yeah. Um, I love in this the detail of, okay, Voldemort sending Draco clearly as a punishment. I don't remember if it said that in the movie, but it's clearly a punishment for Lucius's like
Mistake.
failings, and because he's in Azkaban, and so Narcissa Malfoy is the only, like, Draco's the only person she has left. Voldemort sending him to his death. Like the like what you were talking about in the film, Narcissa has this kind of still like, I'm proud to be a Malfoy. I'm emotional, but it's not desperate. It's just
Well,
like
if it is
low-key
desperate, but I
sadness.
would never show it.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly. And while this definitely did come across as just like Severus, I need help. This is my last resort. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, you can feel that tension happening. Um, man, it was great, and I loved being able to hear from Snape, like how
How
we
do you talk
saw,
himself out of it?
yeah, because we saw Voldemort say, this person's gonna pay, this person's gonna pay, this person's gonna pay because they didn't come to me sooner, or when I initially called, they did not answer. And so if he is a Death Eater, okay, well, how did that conversation go with Voldemort? Like, how were you able to still be alive? Or at least not be tortured? And maybe he was, but we don't know. But how were you able to get out of that situation? How can we trust you? How do we know that you're, someone worth bending Voldemort's ear and being his most trusted advisor? And we get all of those answers in this chapter.
What I think is wild that she wrote this entire thing and we don't know what the job is
Mhm.
the first time
Mhm.
around. And it makes so much more sense on the back end. And he literally
True.
says, I think,
True.
and he does acknowledge before the unbreakable vow that he's like, I think Voldemort does want me to kill him in the end, do it in the end. But he
Mhm.
wants to make Draco try to make up for Lucius's shortcomings. And so it's just a crazy dynamic there.
Mhm.
And how that plays out. And also, like, I genuinely believe that Snape had turned to the dark side by the end of this, on the initial read, by the end of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Something that always stood out to me about this chapter in particular, because I like to think about, I mean, we get all of this stuff about, like, here's what they do at school, but what do they do when they're not at school? What do the
That is good.
professors do when school's not in session? And not that this is a great example, but I mean, Snape has a house.
Yeah.
Well, and she spends
Ish.
so much time going through the little details and explaining every little bit of Spinner's End and the area and the cold mist in the air and the river that flows next to it. She describes this fox for like a paragraph, and then Bellatrix kills
Very
it.
Tolkien-esque.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, maybe that probably is some inspiration there, but I was like, that has to be some kind of thematic, like killing in foxes, like killing innocents or something like that, like some kind of terrible thing. But yeah, she talks about Snape's house and like it looks like it has not been lived. It's not lived in most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
which is great.
Yeah. So let's continue to go on. Chapter 3, Will and Won't. I remember when I was reading through this one, this is like one of Dumbledore's like savage moments that I absolutely loved, because this is the scene to where, or this is the chapter where, Dumbledore's picking up Harry from the Dursleys. He invites himself in. It's awkward. It's tense. And Dumbledore initially comes across as just like whimsy, like just aloof, just oblivious
Let's pretend that you've invited me into your sitting room.
and just goes about that, but then has a moment to where he's just like, you didn't do what I asked you to do when I wrote
You
you that
abused
letter.
this child.
Yeah, basically, like you have ruined him, and but at the same time, you gave him a place to be protected with the spell that I placed over, and so you did that, and I asked you to do that one more time. But even for him to just like, oh man, I'm gonna pull it up because I think the way that it is
It's so
talked about,
calm and so chill, but I still think
Yeah.
it's my favorite time that Harry is picked up from the Dursleys
hmm
in the whole book series. I can't think of a better one. They're all fun though. I feel like that's part of the draw, is that you're being pulled from the Muggle world back into the magical world through some fun adventure, whether it be the flying car or
hmm
Harry just straight up leaving
yeah.
in Prisoner of Azkaban.
So here's the part. It's in page 55. It says, when I left him upon your doorstep 15 years ago with a letter explaining about his parents' murder and expressing the hope that you would care for him as though he were your own. Dumbledore paused, and although his voice remained light and calm, and he gave no obvious sign of anger, Harry felt a kind of chill emanating from him and noticed that the Dursley drew very slightly closer together. You did not do as I asked. You have not treated Harry as a son. He has known nothing but neglect and often cruelty at your hands. The best thing that could be said is that he has at least escaped the appalling damage that you have inflicted upon the unfortunate boy sitting between you. Like,
That was a low blow. A deserved low blow.
a deserved low blow, you could say. And I was just
Yeah.
like, damn. Like, like I was just
it's like
wow.
that's the part where he pulls up Dudley. He's like, you have ruined this child.
Yeah. And just I loved it. I thought it was a great, because I've been waiting for that moment probably since, I guess, the Order of the Phoenix, when Dumbledore sent
Sorcerer's
Petunia the
Stone.
Screamer.
Since
Yeah.
Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah.
I love the comeuppance. I think on this read through for me, I'm actually finding more enjoyment in the in between moments, like the
Yeah.
beginning of this chapter. They're doing all of this writing, and Harry is fast asleep with his face pressed up against the window. And like he moves a little bit and his glasses become more askew, but he does not wake up. And Abby's not here today, but we would be remiss if we didn't shout out Hedwig for trying to click Harry awake, because she's like, I'm sick of being in this cage, and he just doesn't wake up.
Yeah.
And it talks about like how he's read Dumbledore's scroll so many times that it's completely lying flat. He didn't really believe. And they go through all of those newspaper clippings to explain what has been going on in the universe from the Muggles' eye, from not the Muggles, the Daily Prophet's eyes.
Right.
It's just phenomenal writing, is what it is. You're not bored, even though it's explaining all of these things.
Yeah.
But that's really, I mean, I love how Dumbledore comes, picks him up, and waits patiently while Harry, and the clinking of the glasses against their heads is always a good laugh for me.
Yeah.
But I love next chapter far more.
Yeah, Horace Slughorn. I'm gonna say this right off the bat. Slughorn in the movie is a lot more lovable than the book version of Slughorn.
He makes the book one more lovable for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is what he's done.
Really?
Yeah.
How? Explain that.
I don't even know. Like I love Jim Broadbent's performance of it. It gives.
So you're putting that into the book version, is what you're saying?
I think that's what my brain is doing a little bit.
Okay. That makes
I
sense.
think I like both versions, but he still is a very interesting character. He's so different from all the other characters. He's brand new. He shows the most different side to a Slytherin. I think he's fun. Like he and I love the way Dumbledore describes him in the book, that he prefers the back seat, much more spacious back there. Like he doesn't really want to be, he doesn't want the glory. So he's almost like, he's got to be like Tom Riddle's least favorite Slytherin, right? But he loves taking the back seat. He loves giving advice, connecting people to other people. I made this comparison with Cole, and it might not be right. I didn't look into it, but I feel like there has to be some kind of connection between some inspiration for Horace Slughorn from the historical person Bismarck, who's famous for the big bushy mustache, walrus mustache, and he made all of the connections between governments in Europe that led to World War One. That's Horace Slughorn. Like, that's what he basically did to start the first Wizarding War. Is he had a lot of those original Death Eaters and Voldemort himself in his Slug Club.
The Slug Club.
Slug Club. But no, Jim Broadbent is better. Like, it's a classic case of movie character being better than the book. But I still love that he has this relationship with Albus that's like, he's like, I'm not coming back. But then also they talk with such like happy air to each other about how he turned himself into a chair and how he did this, and dragon's blood and all that. Very accomplished wizard, very powerful wizard,
and like you said, very well portrayed with by Jim Broadbent. I love
that name.
I watched the Chronicles of Narnia: The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe for the first time in like 10 years this weekend. And I was like, dang, Slughorn as the professor.
I kind of wish that they had given him a big, huge mustache for the movies. And that would have completed it for me. But he's still great. And I think it's like him and Brendan Gleeson's Mad-Eye Moody are probably my best movie over book portrayals. But no, he's got a much more positive air about him in the movie. He does. He's more light like stuff. But I still he still has the collector energy to him.
Yeah,
Benicio del Toro?
Yeah, a little bit. Like he talks about like the blacks. He's like, oh, I got
I would have loved
the set. And Harry's like so mad because he's talking about people. Like there's
well, it goes back to
figurines.
what you were to go back to what you were talking about, like, you know, like when Dumbledore says, you know, Slughorn, he doesn't like to occupy the seat itself, but rather takes the back seat. He loves to have the feeling of influencing people, and he's
a modern day TikToker.
And but he also reaps the benefits from those people.
Yeah, he does.
Too.
Yes, because he gets like box seats to Quidditch games. You know, he gets to lend the ear of someone at Gringotts, I think. And so that, to me, that's a very, I don't think we've seen that side. We really don't see that side of professors a lot. It's just like, oh, they're teachers and they teach this.
You know,
Slughorn's like one of the few who we've seen his outside influence away from Hogwarts.
And from listeners to kind of give you, if you haven't read this in a while or you haven't seen the movie in a while, to kind of give you a good picture of this, is in the movie when Dumbledore finds the armchair and he shocks him and he pops out, Merlin's beard. No need to disfigure me, Albus. And Jim they're talking about how, and he's like, oh, well, I do this, and then I come by the stuffing naturally. What gave me away? Now you switch to the book, and he rolls over. He's like, Merlin's beard, Dumbledore. What? And he grumbles, what gave me away? Like, it's just a very different comparison of Horace.
Almost Uncle Vernon type grumpy.
He is, and I think he does kind of remind Harry of Uncle Vernon at points, but he does get a lot happier when he gets going back to Hogwarts. I also feel like he shouldn't have been that short. Like Jim Broadbent is just so tall that it makes the book one feel way too short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Too
But
bad
other
he
than
ended
that,
up
the scene in the
big.
movie is great.
It is.
And the CGI must have been a obscene amount of money and time. Or
But
both.
I do love that, like them putting it back together. And this one, it's not just Dumbledore like in the film. It's
No, in the
him
film it's
and
both of them.
Slughorn doing it together.
No, they both do it in the film.
Do they do it?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I missed that.
They both get their wands. They're just doing it
Mm.
together. I think also Dumbledore is a little more fun in the film. Well, he's laying it on a little more thick.
Yeah.
Where he's
Yeah.
like, we're like my friend Harry Potter here, one of a kind.
One of a kind.
And I also like the note in the movie when I was hoping that I thought he'd say it in the book, but I guess he didn't. In the movie when they're walking out, he's like, I'll do it. But I want Professor Merrythoughts' old office, not the old water closet I had before. And I want to
This is
raise
bad, this is
Dumbledore.
living it.
Bad times bad. And Dumbledore goes, they are indeed.
Yeah.
He just
Great.
says he wants a raise.
Mm-hmm. And just to know the impact that Slughorn has, even initially, the chapter name is his name. Like it's a big deal. It's a big
Yeah.
deal, and I loved it. Chapter 5.
Yeah.
This was fun. I loved this chapter as well. One of the things that I did notice from it was just like how all the women in the house do not like Fleur Delacour. They just do not like
Fleur
her.
is a lot more mean and annoying in the book.
Mm.
I mean, we knew that he was going out with her, but we don't even see Fleur until Deathly Hallows movie, I think.
Mm-hmm. Seeing her again did remind of the scene that's coming. Of obviously when.
At the end of the book. You're talking about with Fleur and Bill?
Yeah, when
where
he's caught up.
Molly assumes that she's going to leave him.
And she's just
Wild.
like furious and says, "No, I'm gonna stay. Like
Their
I
love
love
is
him
real.
even more. Like yeah, like to me that's gonna be the huge payoff. So I'm always thinking about that. But she didn't give
Warms
a
my
very
heart
good.
just thinking about that scene.
Exactly, it's
Aw.
great. I loved it.
Ginny gets great. I'm a Ginny
Oh,
stan,
actually,
and
yes.
Ginny. So this book
We
is
are.
this book is the Ginny book, and she's just
Hashtag
so
love
much.
triangle's not real.
I mean, Flem is her nickname for
Yeah.
her, but she just gives so much attitude. She's like, she only wants me down there, so she's not alone with Flem. And then she gets up and whips her hair and prances away, just like Flem does.
Which
Real,
is
really good
it's
stuff.
crazy when you consider where she was in the Chamber of Secrets of like not even able to speak, and now she's like rivaling Ron.
She's fine.
for,
Well,
like-
it's just so quickly comfortable with Harry.
yeah,
And she like pretends to vomit in her like breakfast and stuff. It's great. It's really good stuff.
yeah.
Even
Well,
Hermione. Is this the chapter where Hermione gets punched by the telescope?
Oh,
I think it is.
yes, it is. It is. It is.
Oh,
Yeah,
really
definitely.
good stuff.
She gets a black eye.
Yeah, she squeezed the thing too hard and it punched her in the body. Also, but it's kind of weird. Like, why isn't Harry staying in Ron's room? Still.
Like, why aren't they like bunk bed buddies?
Yeah, like in the movies.
I don't know.
Where's Hermione staying? Where's Fleur staying? I guess
Maybe-
Percy's room is available too.
Yeah, and I guess I would just assume, you don't want too much love triangle going on.
'Cause I
between
think- well,
Harry,
and I-
Ron, and Hermione.
Oh yeah, because that definitely exists.
It's the other way. Well, I said it earlier. I said hashtag love triangle is not real.
Yeah. I think I figured. I mean, they're not. They would. Ginny would make a big deal about Fleur being in the same room with her. So that's not going on.
Yeah.
Hermione's always in Ginny's room, I feel like. But I thought, I don't know, I forgot about how this chapter played out. Like I kind of half thought Harry going to his room and then Ron and Hermione would sneak down, but still good. Harry has to reveal that he's the chosen one to his spoon.
Yeah. That was great though.
It's very accurate to how that would play out with real
So
people.
he admitted it to Ron's emotional range.
Of a teaspoon. Yeah,
Yes.
very good. I was like, what? Just because you've got the emotional range of a teaspoon. That's a really good Hermione line. Probably one of her best.
It is. Yeah. But what I did enjoy was the owls results. That was pretty cool. I like seeing that.
They're just all grabbing each other.
Yeah.
And Hermione got every single outstanding except for Defense Against the Dark Arts because she freaked out.
Yeah. But I did one of the sad things that I did notice was like Harry looked back down at his results. They were as good as he could have hoped for. He just had one tiny twinge of regret. This was the end of his ambition to become an Auror.
That was by design by Dumbledore for sure, getting Slughorn to come back for that specific reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild that Harry got exceeds expectations on his potions owl.
Well, because I think what they said was that like, oh, when Snape's not around, he can actually relax and do what he's supposed to do.
Which makes Snape he's the worst. He's such a bad teacher. And TikTok is getting on the Snape sucks train. Or at least I found the Snape sucks side of TikTok.
Wow.
Well, she was like, there was someone talking about like character arcs, redeem arcs that didn't work for me or weren't good enough. And Snape,
agreed.
She's like, no matter what redemption arc he has, it's not like, it doesn't make up for what he did to those kids for so many years.
No.
And I do remember, well, I think I even remember after reading Deathly Hallows, like I said, this did nothing to redeem Snape for me.
And she did acknowledge that Alan Rickman is so much more lovable. So that changed things.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Anything else big in this chapter that we need to hit on?
I felt like Hermione and Ron had something, but I think it's in the next chapter.
Let's go to the next one. Chapter 6, Draco's Detour. Love how this small detail, not really important, but I just loved it. Harry's made the Quidditch captain, which is fantastic. I loved it. But we start our journey to Hogwarts, but Savage Harry has returned.
Oh, he is in his prime. He's in his prime. He is holding nothing back because he's like, I gotta fight Voldemort anyway. I'll just start saying whatever.
I'm trying to find where it's at because it's awesome.
Or because she talks about like how he's not safe or whatever, and he goes, "Oh," looks around, he's like, "Voldemort's not here. Why don't you have a go?"
Oh yeah. So the couple of lines that I see is just like Narcissa Malfoy strolled out from behind the coat racks. "Put those away," she said coldly to Harry and Ron. "If you attack my son again, I shall assure that it is the last thing you ever do." "Really?" said Harry. "Going to get a few Death Eater pals to do us in, aren't you? Are you?" And then Narcissa smiled unpleasantly. "I see that being Dumbledore's favorite has given you a false sense of security, Harry Potter, but Dumbledore won't always be there to protect you."
Oh, that's
Harry
right.
looked mockingly all around the shop. "Wow. Well, look at that. He's not here now, so why not have a go? They might be able to find you a double cell in Azkaban with your loser of a husband." I'm like, whoa.
Nothing held back. Nothing.
Nope.
I forget about that. I was like,
It's so good. Like Savage Harry is just fantastic.
Um,
What was
is
the one
this?
he had with Snape a couple books ago?
No, it's in this book where he says, yes, and then Snape goes, yes, sir, and then Harry says, "There's no need to call me sir, Professor."
That's the one I was thinking about.
It's in this book. It comes in it, and it says right after that. I think it's like it came out of his mouth before he thought of it, what he was doing.
Yeah. So awesome.
It's like, don't screw around in Snape's class. Is this the chapter where they go to Weasley's Wizard Wheezes?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Just by the way, Fred and George are short in the books,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
which I had to remind myself of once or twice. I love the way they presented it in the movie, but we got to spend more time in Weasley Wizard Wheezes in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dark Defenses is like a shelf in the movie, and it's an entire section of the store. The Muggle magic tricks section for their dad, like that's so heartwarming.
Mm-hmm. It is, but also like even the fact of just like, oh yeah, we're working on, you know, some things to help wizards escape some Death Eaters. And
Well, they made the shield hats as a joke.
Yeah, but it
And then
ended
the
up being
ministry ordered
something-
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's cool, and I love that. And I'm just.
But he's like, they can't even.
Yeah, you're right.
Some ministry officials can't even produce a shield charm. They didn't have you, Harry, teaching us.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. You're absolutely right. Very heartwarming, touching moment. Just great all around.
Although I think their lines with Ron when he's trying to buy the things and they say, "Oh, we'll knock off a nut." The movie is more funny because he's like,
"How much for
me? How much
me?
is this? 5 galleons. How much for me? 5 galleons. But I'm your brother." And they both say together, 10 galleons.
10 galleons. Yeah.
They also made the Umbridge joke in the movie.
Oh yeah.
They have a little model Umbridge that's running around.
I will have water. It's great stuff.
Oh, the Pygmy Puffs.
Yeah.
Very cute.
Mm-hmm.
But and I know they go to Borgin and Burkes and everything. This happens later, but I like that Ron and Hermione just bicker the entire way back under the disability quote. It's like Hermione and Ron bickering. Some things never change.
Mm-hmm.
They were born to bicker with each other for all eternity.
Yeah, it's like Ron says, "Oh well," said Ron, throwing the cloak back over Hermione. "Worth a try, but you were a bit obvious. Well, next time you could show me how it's done, Master of Mystery," she snapped. And they bickered all the way back to the Weasleys, Wizard Wheezies, where they were forced to stop so they could dodge undetected around a very anxious-looking Mrs. Weasley and Hagrid.
Oh, Hagrid coming back was great too.
Yeah, loved it. I also loved it when they were splitting up. You know, okay, you guys are gonna go into to get new robes, and then you're gonna go to we can get the books. And Molly's just like, I don't know. And Hagrid's just like, don't worry, they're safe with me. I was like, you right, Hagrid, they're safe with you.
They're safe with you. They might not be. They literally left under your nose.
Yeah,
there's no way all three of them can fit under the invisibility quote. We're all lying to ourselves at this point. Oh, it's flapping around magical. The ankles.
It's magical. No. It just expands. It just expands and becomes.
But then it should just be able to expand indefinitely.
Exactly. The whole world covered.
Draco shows him. We get to actually hear Draco because they have extendable ears. That's the difference between the movie. And Draco does have the dark mark, if that wasn't obvious. I feel like that was like some people said it was headcanon. The J.K. Rowling was like, yeah, he does. But he definitely does.
Showed it in the movie.
I don't remember.
Like I was chosen for this.
Oh, yes, he does in the movie. I think they were saying that it wasn't clear in the book.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't do that to Dumbledore he doesn't do that with Dumbledore in the movie. but
right.
it's still very much implied that he has the dark mark.
Yeah.
Also, I like, and this is the throwback because I'm thinking about the dark mark. The giveaway for Horace Slughorn was that he didn't have the dark mark over his house.
Mm.
Yeah.
Anyway, you could say it was a dead giveaway.
Nice. Love that. But it's chapters 1 and 6.
Woo.
Loved it.
And that's
great.
like a fifth of the book.
Yeah.
It's a fast
I
read.
did notice whenever I was taking this off the shelf to read it, I was like, wow, this is significantly smaller than Order of the Phoenix.
And
I'm thankful. It's Deathly Hallows is in between. I think that's why people don't like this. They feel like it's just a pit stop between Order of the Phoenix and Deathly Hallows, and I don't feel that. It feels like a really fast, very adventurous, back to the good stuff, but
I feel like
its penultimate book.
I feel like it is a pit stop, but not in a bad way. It's the calm before the storm.
Or the beginning of the storm, yeah.
Or the beginning of the storm. And like we said at the top, this just fills us in on Voldemort. This is what we need to know before we can proceed. We have to know this important information that we otherwise wouldn't get. And so pit stop, yes. A bad pit stop, not necessarily.
All the love stuff happens. It's the last year. Again, as I said at the beginning, it's the last year at Hogwarts. Live it up.
Yeah.
Because next book, they're in a tent for like 400, 500 pages.
Yeah.
Listening to that radio, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To that one specific song on the radio when Ron's not around.
That's the movie.
Oh, gosh.
I like the book because they have the fun. They have the fun code names.
Yes.
Like one of them's called River.
Until we finish reading through the books and we do our rewatch series of the movies, because I'm going to rip that scene to shreds. So much. It's so awkward and cringy.
There's always awkward and cringy scenes. So,
but we're also gonna rip apart the fact that Bonnie Wright doesn't have enough scenes in this
correct,
because she's like this is the book to where we fall in love with Ginny Weasley as a character. Like it
started last book.
Well, it did start last book, but like we get a lot of her in this one.
A lot.
I enjoyed it a lot.
But what's wild is we haven't even gotten to the Half-Blood Prince part.
It's true.
That's a fun part of the book.
We're laying down the groundwork still, but that's going to do it for us here on the Show Requirements, a Harry Potter podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. Comment what your favorite part of this section was. If you enjoyed this podcast in audio forms, make sure to follow the podcast and leave us a review, as it helps us get out there and possibly crack the top 10 of Harry Potter podcasts. But if you want to get more content from us, make sure to follow us on Instagram at hpotter_fanatics. But yeah, guys, we're excited to continue to dive into this book, have some fan casting, hopefully here soon, ?
Maybe we'll do it in between Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
But for Spencer and Cole, this is David for the show. And until next time, mischief and mischief.